Hey y'all, I'm back one more again. This is your man, the Black Patriot. We're here now. We're gonna break down some policy, um, and give you some insight on some of the things that's going on in Washington and that you don't know about. Just before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Red Elephant. That's rdelephant.com. Make sure you go check them out, rdelephant.com. A new social media platform that's up and coming. There is a nominal fee for it, but just know part of your nominal fee goes towards the Wounded Warrior Project. All right, and I said proceeds. Part of that goes to the Wounded Warrior Project, and you'll be doing great good for the veterans that are injured in combat, ones that come back with PTSD, things like that. So definitely check them out, rdelephant.com. And also, when you do sign up, you'll get a free coffee mug with the RD Elephant logo on it, and etc. So you can sport that around and have a nice new little coffee mug. So make sure you go check them out, rdelephant.com. Big supporters of the Wounded Warrior Project, big supporters of veterans, all right? So the bill we're going to be talking about today, okay, is H.R.25, all right? H.R.25 is a bill. It's called the FairTax Act, okay? It's been pushed forward by a Republican senator from, Republican House rep out of Georgia 7, Rob Goodall. He's been pushing this for 8 years, and I noticed it's been catching some steam. So I kind of got into it, broke it down, all right, and started seeing the ins and outs. Right now, I'm going to preface this with you understanding about personal taxes, all right? And we know it's that time of year, everybody's getting their W-2s and found their 1040 EZs, 1040As, 1099s, etc., right? So I thought this video would be appropriate right now to give you another insight into this bill. If you haven't heard of it, I will put it down in the box down here, okay? So you can definitely check that out and see what it's all about, okay? Now, let's dive into it a little bit, right? It's House Resolution 25. Check it out in the box below. The FairTax Act of 2019. Okay, and like I said, this guy's been pushing this bill for about 8 years now, and no one in the House has seemed to like it for some reason. I don't understand why, because it makes a lot of sense, but I'm going to make sense of it for you. Okay. So, it's, like I said, it's tax season. All right. And, our tax system is all kinds of complex and difficult and this, that, and the third. Right. But, many people, they feel as if the tax code benefits the wealthy, the corporations, and families and special interest groups that have they think they have unfair access to loopholes and exemptions that help them avoid paying their fair share. All right, we've heard that talk before. The 1% need to pay more, et cetera, et cetera. Right, so that kind of plays into that little narrative they're talking about. Okay, now, over the last few years, as I've been watching this bill get presented and pushed back to the Ways and Means Committee, pushed back again, I've noticed a lot of co-sponsors has been jumping on board with this. All right, and with this fair tax plan, right? I'm just gonna make it real basic for you. Right, this plan would replace the federal income tax system with the flat national sales tax. Now, proponents believe this initiative would eliminate the loopholes, number one, which would be good, all right, evenly spread the tax burden across all socioeconomic levels, all right, and eliminate the hassle of the diminishing federal tax revenues, right? Now, many people I've talked to about this has had their opinions But from no to yes, and what about this? What about that? And the opponents of the bill contend that the fair tax plan would require the middle class to pay just a little bit more in taxes, which doesn't make any sense because when they say that, they've never actually read the plan, right? Okay, and then they also, these same opponents of this bill also says the wealthy, okay, will pay less, which is not true either. So I'm going to give you some facts, some pros and cons on this, and let you draw your conclusion on this bill. So make sure you've gone down to the link below, okay, and you have pulled it up on Congress.gov website or saved it to your phone or whatever you're watching me on, so you can kind of read through it and listen to what I'm telling you, all right? Now, this legislation, this Fair Tax Act, H.R.25, Senate Bill 13, actually, also it proposes the federal government stops collecting many different types of income taxes, including personal income tax, Social Security tax, Medicare tax, capital gains taxes, self-employment taxes, estate taxes, alternative minimum tax, all right? Instead, right, what this bill does is the government would generate tax revenue by instituting a national sales tax, okay, on most purchase items. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, like, hold on, I got to adjust my camera just a little bit, guys. It's getting kind of blurry on me here. All right, there we go. That looks great. All right, so it sounds kind of weird, right, that you would think, oh, a national sales tax on top of the state sales tax, et cetera, et cetera. No, that's not really the case here. Okay, and I'll present that forward here for you. Okay, what would end up happening is this national sales tax would be on purchased items. Okay, businesses, right, collect the tax at the point of sale, and then sends the revenue to the federal government, right, which would make the IRS obsolete, right? You know, that old pesky 3-letter alphabet soup agency. Yeah, that one, the IRS that takes our taxes, it would make them obsolete. And your net income would no longer have anything to do with how many exemptions you can claim. Instead, your paycheck would simply be how much you make tax-free. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, think about that. What's really wrong with that picture? Who wouldn't want to have no taxes, just take home what they make? That'd be great, wouldn't it? Because those of you that, drop $3,000-$4,000 in taxes every year, you're getting that money, right? You're getting that money in your paycheck still, right? Which is who can't beat that, right? And it promotes also, what that also promotes also is the fact that people can't be lazy with their money. They can't do all this crap during the year and then get broken down and they have to wait till tax time to pay off major bills. Well, they'll have this money going throughout the year, which is why I am a big proponent of this bill. I have been for a few years. I just hope they can get it pushed through the House, because I know the Senate would pass it almost automatically. Almost automatically. All right. Now, with the IRS gone bye-bye, all right, the related legislation here, okay, would repeal the 16th Amendment also, which would, if you don't know what the 16th Amendment is, it means, I'll put it in layman's terms, the federal government would no longer have the right to levy income taxes against the people. State and local governments, however, would still be able to collect revenue via income and sales taxes at their discretion. All right. So now you're thinking a national sales tax and still a state sales tax and a local sales tax. That's too much taxation. But we're going to get to the good part of this. All right. Now, This is how. Now let me tell you how the national sales tax would actually work. Okay, the sales tax that's in the bill. Okay, the proposed sales tax is at about 23% of the total payment on just about all purchases. Okay, now it sounds like you would pay a simple 23% tax. It's probably what you're thinking, right? But not that's not exactly it. Okay, basically, it works out to be a 30% sales tax rate. Okay, because you wouldn't pay the tax at the register like you do now, right? So for random example, okay, an item marked $100 would already include the sales tax within it. In this case, right, with the 20, we'll take the 23%. The $23 would be baked in, which would be called an inclusive tax, which is something you wouldn't see. So, in other words, the cost of the item without the tax would be $77. But with the $23 paid on top of the $77, which is about 30%, that is how I'm using it to, using it to calculate it, right? While 30% is steep, you'd be working with a larger paycheck. Okay, let's think about this. Okay, because no federal tax would be withheld. Now, is it making a little bit of sense? I hope so. Right? Furthermore, the tax plan itself attempts to solve the issue of double taxation. For example, okay, currently businesses pay sales tax on the materials they use to create goods they sell, right? Which then gets taxed again. Okay, in effect, the same material gets taxed twice, but under H.R.25, right, the FairTax Plan Act, the items purchased directly by businesses could avoid sales tax, all right, and thereby avoid being double taxed. This should bring the wholesale cost of your purchase down, actually, okay? And in theory, okay, it should reduce the retail price as well. As I close this section out about how the sales tax work, right? The used items won't be subjective to this tax because it's already been taxed, right? So we're avoiding the double taxation in that way. That kind of goes to the same example of the Herman Cain when he ran for president, his 999 plan. Right, his flat nine plan was the exact same setup. All right, but he was still using the IRS to collect the money. So it's the same concept, right? Now, the other part of this tax bill has a prebate, and I know you've heard rebate and all that stuff. We're talking prebate, okay? Or basically a prebate would be a annual consumption allowance. Okay, it's designed in part to relieve poverty level Americans by providing a monthly check that would essentially offset all of their sales tax expenditures. Sounds good, right? We're talking about we're helping the poor and all this stuff, right? So what wouldn't be better than doing that, right? Now, the amount of the allowance will be based on poverty level guidelines, okay, and would increase for larger families, obviously, right? Through this prebate, okay, it's geared toward poorer families. Everyone would receive, I wouldn't say that. Well, everyone would receive a monthly check regardless of income. The prebate itself, okay, would bring up yet another point of contention, okay, with different critics, especially people I've talked to and supporters. It is the most expensive element of the entire plan, which I did the numbers, and it's not by much, okay, with this, but would be the largest entitlement program in American history. So we're kind of diving into that whole entitlement bit, right? And it would constitute this prebate is basically like a welfare payment, right? Even for those without a need, okay, with this, so anybody can get it, the wealthy down to all the way to the bottom, okay. Now, let me put that in layman's terms for some of you, okay. It's a 2-parent billionaire households with 2 kids, okay. They would receive the same monthly prebate for a 2-parent child household struggling at $20,000 a year. Okay. So that's basically how that breaks down. Now, let's talk about the pros. Okay. The pros of this plan. Okay. It favors high income earners, right? Because see, currently our tax system right now, okay, is based on tax brackets. Okay. The more you make, the more you pay in taxes. Under the Fair Tax Plan, only the amount of income you spend gets taxed, right? So someone who makes $200,000 a year and spends $100,000, for example, would pay, I think I calculate it's like 11.5% of their income to taxes. Okay. The other good pro about this is helping with investments, right? Because of capital gains taxes would be eliminated right off the top. Individuals can afford to invest and enjoy tax-free compound growth, right? So think about like your Roth IRAs, are already tax-free, but then now all of them across the board, would be pretty much tax-free, right? Yeah. You can invest as much as you want, withdraw what you want without penalty, right? Because, obviously the people that do these IRAs and stuff and these tax shelter accounts, there's a penalty. This plan would take that all away. All right. Now, under current legislation, federal legislation, you can only invest a certain amount per year, right? But must be 59.5 to withdraw funds without penalty, which is steep because that's basically wiping you out, right? I mean, in essence, that's what it is. It's literally wiping you out at this point. Excuse me, guys. Another point in this conversation that we should be having too is it makes tax revenues easier to predict. Now, because consumption rates have been more stable than incomes, figuring out tax revenues would likely be simpler, and estimates will be more accurate. Okay. Another pro with this plan would be benefiting businesses. I'm kind of looking at my notes here. I got a whole bunch of notes scribbled here on my laptop and then on my big screen over here. So I'm kind of pandering back and forth and making sure I'm hitting all the points correctly. So I apologize if it seems like I'm meandering. All right. Now, as far as benefiting businesses are concerned, along with eliminating the double taxation, okay, the proposed plan would get rid of payroll taxes too, and taxes on capital and investments. Now, this particular change could substantially benefit businesses and buyers because prices would fall due to increased spending power, and lower production costs. So it's sounding kind of good right now, right? I mean, I think pretty much everybody that really pays attention to this bill, should be all in, right? What it also promotes, right, and it's a very conservative value, right, is more disciplined spending habits, right? It's apparent that, we live in an impulse society, right? Everything is bought on impulse and, this, that, and a third. But the real question is, excuse me, guys, I had to pop that up. The real question is how do we fix that issue? Okay, with this, okay. So with the taxes not being taken out and you're paying taxes, quote unquote, at the register, but not in the way, we kind of discuss how you're not. Okay. The rampant use of credit cards and mortgage debt crisis that's in our country right now has become far too dependent on credit, right? We've become credit evolved, right? The fair tax would put an end to this problem, since the more you spend, the more you pay. Okay. People would likely be inclined to pay off their debt rather than spend more, since money that goes to credit cards won't be taxed. I mean, you can't beat that with a stick. All right. Now, it also eliminates the tax administration and filing. Okay. And that's basically IRS is done. Game over. Bye-bye, IRS. One of these administrative state agencies. Bye-bye. See you later. Peace. You don't have people come knocking at your door demanding money because you haven't paid, right? You haven't paid enough taxes, okay? And the other pro with this is providing the prebates, right? The monthly check that would offset some portions of every household's sales tax payments, okay? Especially for families near or below the poverty line, which is good, right? Because we don't want the poor getting poorer. We want them, to come up. Now, here's the part that people should be kind of concerned about with this, right? Because granted, we just talked, briefly, about this, right? On the pro side, right now, just like any piece of legislation, any type of economic, upcoming, things can break, things can't go to plan, right? So one of the disadvantages I found in this bill was the penalization of lower and middle classes, right? Individuals and families that are above poverty, okay, and considered middle class will bear the brunt of the tax burden for the country. This is a kind of a progressive tax, which means that the wealthy pay more and the poor and middle class pay less as a percentage of their income. This expectation will come true, however, if individuals spend 100% of their income on taxable expenditures. Okay. Taxpayers, especially wealthy citizens, are not likely to choose to live paycheck to paycheck like a lot of us do, right? The wealthy won't likely trade investing for spending anytime soon. Okay. So this plan would indeed be regressive, meaning that those with less money will end up paying the higher percentage of their income on taxes, which, it makes sense, right? Now, the other thing was the potential for tax evasion. Such a high sales tax rate would undoubtedly lead many to evade the tax, possibly through trade and purchasing goods in other countries, right, which can be easily caught. That's why you have customs, right? To kind of handle that business, and what you have to declare certain things when you come across the border, come to a port, etc. Right? So we have to beef that up, and that kind of goes into the whole border security thing that Trump is talking about, and what we need to do. That's kind of included in that, right? We beef up customs, we can stop these things, right? It all makes sense in time, right? Now, it can decrease overall spending, right? Because under this proposal, the best way to lower the tax burden, okay, will be to spend less. Too little spending is not good for any capitalist economy. In fact, while many countries, many current tax incentives are specifically created to drive consumer spending, the large sales tax could discourage consumers from spending freely, thus hurting the economy. Now, another con I found in this bill, okay, over here, is eliminating tax deductions and credits. Many people derive significant benefit from common personal tax deductions, such as the home mortgage interest deduction, the child independent care, right? Education credits, and other deductions of that, earned income credit, and not to mention deduct medical bills and expenses off of your off of your taxes, right? Now, the cost of home ownership then could significantly rise for homeowners who currently itemize and have large interest payments. Renting would become even more appealing because of the fact they're already ailing real estate market, okay, and because it's already devastated. So if people start renting again, then that's a small problem, right? That'd be a small problem, right? Now, also with this, it can make the state income a bigger burden, right? Through federal income tax would go, they'll go away. State income tax would remain, and of course, it would no longer be deductible against federal taxes. The effect of this would be a great burden on residents of high income tax states like California, New York, etc. Unless you live in a sales tax free state like Oregon or New Hampshire, and I think Delaware is still tax free, or no, they don't have tax on clothes in Delaware. My fault on that. My fault. You could pay your state sales tax on top of the fair tax, and then on top of your state income tax. For a family living in Los Angeles making $100,000 a year, okay, for example, would be well over 40%. Okay. The other con of this bill is depending too much on spending. Okay. Paradoxically, this tax is dependent on spending, but at the same time discourages it also. Plus, so many wealthy individuals already invest in their on their own and in other businesses. They may be further motivated to do so. These moves could benefit the economy overall, but since these activities would be non-taxable, all right, the national burden shifts to the lower economic classes. Okay, and one of the last points, increasing costs for immigrants, right? The prebate check system will not include non-citizens, all right, significantly raising the cost of living, especially for lower income immigrants, permanent residents, green card holders, etc., and visa holders, all right. It could also deter higher education foreign workers with great careers such as doctors, engineers, and in the technology sector from immigrating. Now let me break down. Excuse me, I'm having an issue with my back right now. I'm kind of sitting kind of awkward here to try to stay focused on the camera as much as I can. So don't mind me, guys. It's kind of a new kind of rigging I got here, so we're doing it a little different. What does the FairTax Act and inclusive taxation mean? Well, the fair tax may actually attempt to improve the current system, all right, which favors the wealthy with loopholes and big deductions by replacing it with a more equitable system of taxation. However, okay, this may not be the case. While the downsides are troubling with this bill, okay, what's most disturbing is how advocates have presented the plan of this, right, and how quickly it hasn't passed in 8 years because of the way it has been presented, to Congress, right? So let's look at the current sales tax and just use your state as an example in this, right? And what the changes would mean, right? Now, everyone in this country is accustomed to paying what's called an exclusive tax, which is the sales tax you pay now, okay, on your purchases, right? This would mean This means we see how much an item costs and then calculate tax on top, right? On top of that price. In fact, until I actually read through that bill, that's over on my other screen over here that I keep kind of looking back at, make sure I'm going through it correctly here. Okay, yeah, I'm at the right part. Okay, so until I actually read it, I didn't know there was any other way to pay sales tax. Which, I claim to be very smart when it comes to this stuff. Okay, and pretty insightful and kind of forward thinking on these kind of issues. But I was like, this is interesting, right? So, since the inclusive tax is the crux of this fair tax plan, okay, it's worth we really need to sit down and look at it, and you need to get your congressman involved in this and have them take a look at this, right? And again, as I said before, let's think about this a minute, okay? If it's an exclusive tax, right? You purchase an item for $100 at 23% tax rate, you're going to pay $123, okay? However, the fair tax plan calculates it, it's inclusive, it bakes it in, right? So in other words, again, we'll take the $100, right? And if the national sales tax is 23%, right, that will make the item actually cost $77. Okay, which $23 would be the actual tax from the national sales tax, right? But in theory, the 23% really comes out to be about 30%. By the way, we currently measure it by our current tax codes, all right? Now, as I explain this plan, it seems, okay, that a lot of people like me that's read the bill, looked through it, discussed it, right? The 23% tax is a better plan, right? And it makes you wonder what else are they spending with this tax code. Why does Congress, why does IRS misrepresent a crucial aspect of the plan in the first place? Okay, if people vetting this tax plan don't understand why it's misleading to talk about an inclusive sales tax, then I suspect other aspects of the plan will be misleading and possibly flawed as well. And that's a small problem, right? So it has to be presented correctly. Now, on the other hand, okay, the rules, it's not intentional, okay? People get thinking about government as what else are they trying to get by us in? What else are they trying to do with our money, etc. Okay, now let me break down what it means for us, the little people. Okay, now consider that many families like us, right, can currently get the federal tax rate down to 23%, for example. All right, since we're stuck on 23, right, and I have a 5-person family, 2 adults, 3 children, which I don't have 2 adults and 3 children. No, not in my house. No, but anyway, I'm just using that as an example. Okay, the effective tax rate would be 8.9% last year. Okay, while this particular family in general is not near poverty level, they wouldn't be considered remotely wealthy either, right? You're in that in-between ground. Now, of course, we have a mortgage and private mortgage insurance, right? Let's just say this family does, okay? And plus a child in college, 2 in elementary school, and a lot of student loan interest and debt, okay? So, in other words, with this family here, okay, this model family I kind of mocked up here, we have a lot of deductions to lose because of the fair tax if the fair tax goes through. So, you know what? Take a look at your tax returns to find your effective tax rate. If you use a service like TurboTax or H.R. Block, it should be listed on your first page what that is. Okay. How much more or less would you pay under the fair tax plan? If you don't have children or a mortgage, or you have a good salary, your tax rate might be fairly high, but do you ever plan to have a mortgage or children, right? That's the question, right? How do you feel, right? How do you feel about the middle class taking the brunt of this hit? Okay, because the middle class has been conditioned to buy, spend, 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 spend. So yes, the middle class will take a hit, right? But it goes back to that whole thing is there's consumers and creators, right? And that's kind of where we're at here with this situation, okay? So, you know, think about it to yourself. How would you feel if the middle class took this hit, okay? Regardless of whether or not you're in that class or not. Just think about that a minute, okay? Now, take this, now, as you're deciding, take this into account, right? And think about how much more or less you would spend, okay, when deciding whether or not you think the fair tax is truly fair. Now, as I close, okay, it's my final word. There's my, okay, there we go. Okay, so here's my final thought on H.R.25, okay, the fair tax plan, right? All Americans are looking for change, right? We're looking for some sort of change to the tax code. We need to get a break. You know, we need that relief, right? That's what we've been looking for years. We need that relief, okay? The kind of change that'll bring America back to her glory days, right? Or at least give us a fair shake on being comfortable and successful, right? And because of that, it can be easy to believe whatever our favorite politician says without properly evaluating the facts in this. It happened to me a lot. And I finally caught on to what was happening. And I was like, wait, this slime ball. Okay, all right, I got you. Okay. And I really started paying attention. So don't get in that mood and get duped, okay, by your elected politician. If they're wrong, you need to call them out, right? Now, as responsible citizens, we need to, and I want you to examine the facts of the fair tax for yourself. Okay, just don't take my summation to it, right? I'm not an economist or anything like that. I just read the policy and I kind of do the research into what the bill is doing. And I was like, oh, and I come up with an assumption. That's why I bring these videos the way I do, right? And a lot of it, like I said, a lot of it I write down because, you know, I'm not going to articulate. This is raw. You know, I got 6 screens sitting here, 3 here, and I got 3 up above me here that has different information on that I look up on and, you know, catch keys and spark my thoughts, okay? So I'm not going to sit here and act like a politician or anybody like that and try to convince you. I want you to do your own research on this bill. You're probably looking at it right now as you're looking through the video. You know, continue to read through it, etc. Right? Now, the first thing you want to do with any bill, I'm going to kind of get off base a minute, is see who's sponsoring it. You know, what's their history, what they've supported in the past, things like that, right? This can give you an idea of the motivations that the sponsors and the co-sponsors of the bill, okay, are up to, right? Check the roll call votes, right? Check all that. Check the roll call votes, whole 9 yards, right? And just make sure everything's on the up and up. Make sure they're not in the middle, special interest groups, things like that, all right? Like I said, don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it all or anybody else's. Do your own research, right? The best way, I think personally, the best way to create an equitable system of taxation is to demand hard facts over catchy sound bites and empty promises that these politicians have been giving us, right? So my question for you, and you can leave your answer in the comments below. What are your thoughts, okay, on the current system of taxation? Do you think the fair tax will be effective? Well, will be effective in addressing the problems? Let me know in the box below. And just make sure you comment, rate, share, all that good stuff. And I appreciate y'all tuning in, listening to me talk about H.R.25, the FairTax Act of 2019. And I hope you do your research also into this so you can be better informed, and maybe we can exchange information and have a talk about it and see if I missed something or if you caught something I missed, etc. We can hash that and make it better, right? Because a better informed American people is better than a sleeping, sheeple American people. So until next time, in His grace and in liberty, God bless America. Pray for our leaders, pray for America, and pray for our president. Until next time.